Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the Rose Bowl of Leeds Beckett University. We've been practicing that for a few months now as it's changed over from Leeds Met. And a magnificent example of the facilities that exist across Leeds and West Yorkshire at the universities and colleges that I'm very, very happy to represent in terms of partnership. We are the Heart Partnership. I've been advised that we are not expecting fire drills this evening, so if the alarm does go off, you need to get out of here as quickly as you can without panicking. Follow Leeds Beckett members of staff and ambassadors. They'll guide you out to safety outside. For those of you who haven't found the toilets yet, the gentlemen's are just outside here through the door on the right hand side. The ladies are across the bridge and on the right hand side. Thank you for travelling from near and far for this, the 2014 National Care Leavers Week National Lecture. Heart, as I mentioned, is a partnership of 12 West Yorkshire universities and colleges offering higher education who work collaboratively on a number of activities, not least developing support and activities for care experienced young people. We are naturally delighted to host the National Lecture for the first time taking place outside London and Cambridge, so the first time up north. You should all have a programme, speaker biographies and a pledge postcard on your chairs. We'll remind you about the pledge postcard after the Q&A panel at the end, but just so that you can bear this in mind as we go through the evening with the speakers, what we would like you to do with that pledge postcard is put your name and address on the right-hand side, as you would with a normal postcard, and on the left-hand side, put in your personal pledge as to how you might actually improve and support the transition of care leavers through the education system. We'll then send it out as a reminder to you, probably in the new year, and in the meantime, we'll have a look at the pledges and nick some of your good ideas, if you don't mind. Okay. I know there are many colleagues present who are members of the National Network for the Education of Care Leavers, a self-formed network of professionals working to support progression and transition in education, and therefore naturally keen, as you all are, to hear from Belinda Bluff, the National Lecture Provider, and from Lem Cisse, who has sponsored and provided the scholarship for Belinda to complete her PhD at the University of Huddersfield. Obviously, Lem is an internationally acclaimed poet, author, broadcaster and playwright with a fantastic catalogue of work, amongst which my personal favourite, I have to say, is his adaptation of Benjamin Zephaniah's novel Refugee Boy. And I'm going to be really cheeky before the end of the evening. I'm going to get Lem, hopefully, to sign my ticket from Refugee Boy. Bit of a groupie, sorry. Okay, I've got the money with me, Lem. There will be opportunities, obviously, to ask questions of Belinda and Lem at the end. And that session will be chaired by our chair of the Heart Partnership, Professor Margaret House, who is Vice-Chancellor of Leeds Trinity University. And we will be joined on the panel with Salim Tariq, who is Chief Officer of Children's Social Work at Leeds City Council, and who is going to start proceedings this evening with a short introduction on the Child-Friendly Leeds initiative. So, Sal, thank you very much. Cheers.
Thanks, Ian. You'll have to forgive me whilst I play with the IT. We've got here today, and I'm not going to point them out, but we've got members here today of the Have a Voice Council who are children in care or children who have experienced care, and they, how can I get out of here? They've just been taking the piss out of me because on the back of this you'll see me in a ridiculous suit, according to them. So they've just been weighing up who's going to wear it to which fancy dress party, because I've said I'm never wearing it again. Can I say welcome to Leeds? I did my social work qualification here at Leeds Metropolitan University, so it's great for me to be here, and a real privilege for me to be able to be speaking to you this evening. I'm starting with this, which is a picture of me and my mum. when I was little, so it's or. And I've used that because a Japanese friend of mine once said that if you do presentations, either show pictures of your children or show pictures of yourself as a child, and the audience will like you. So you are now duty bound to Lionel. So I manage the Children's Social Work Service here in Leeds. Whole host of social work teams, children's homes, fostering services, and adoption services. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Leeds as a child-friendly city. We've got lofty ambitions in Leeds. We've set out our strategy as a city council with our partners and businesses in Leeds to become the best city in the country by 2030. And as part of that, our director Nigel Richardson always says, if you want to be the best city in the country, first you have to be the best city for children. And so we've really galvanised our strategy around trying to become a child-friendly city. It's not. It's easy to kind of think that these things are fluffy mission statements that senior managers come up with and never really mean anything. But actually, in child-friendly city, I think we've got something really special going on in Leeds, because I've seen how things have really improved just on the back of having something that we can all get behind as a whole partnership in the city. But it's also based on UNICEF and UNICEF's version of what a child-friendly city represents. So as we go along this journey to become a child-friendly city, we will be measuring ourselves against things that UNICEF have said make up child-friendly cities. It's always a kind of work in progress. So I do get a lot of people saying, and we hear a lot of people saying, well, such and such a thing isn't very child-friendly, is it? And that's absolutely appropriate, because part of setting out a mission to become child-friendly is about being able to be challenged about how we operate on a day-to-day basis. So it's about a journey that we're on. We're not a child-friendly city right now, but that's our ambition. It's our ambition to become child-friendly, and therefore, as we go along that journey, then we will face challenges. The care leaver and children in care councils that I told you about today, I was with them at Corporate Carers, which is our political oversight that looks at services for looked after children in Leeds, and I have to say they were absolutely brilliant, very, very challenging, both of the politicians that were there, but also of senior officers like myself. So they really do provide a very significant challenge in terms of the work that we do, and really significant challenge in terms of how we develop our policies and procedures. And the whole idea behind Child Friendly is to try and answer these simple questions. What's it like to be a child or young person growing up in Leeds, and how do we make it better? You may well have heard of obsessions. We have 3 obsessions in Leeds, which we hope that people can really get behind. The first obsession is about reducing the need for children to become looked after. It's really important when you hear about that obsession, because we're talking about reducing need. We're not talking about reducing numbers. If you reduce the need for children to become looked after, over time the numbers will follow. But it's our intention to try and work in a much more proactive and preventative way in order that children don't need to come into the care system. Those that do then come into the care system, we hope to give the best service possible. We want to make the best care system possible for those children and young people that really do need to be in the care system. The second obsession is around school attendance. Now, the reason we've chosen these obsessions are because whilst they're important in and of themselves, they're also very important in terms of a whole series of other indicators, of a whole series of other measures that will really start to improve. So if you can improve school attendance, children will be seen every day by teaching staff. We know that their educational outcomes will be better. We know their life chances will be better. But we also know that their health will be better. And we know on a day-to-day basis that they are safe and well. Our third obsession is destinations. So you'll hear a horrible term called NEETs. Don't like it, but it's about young people and where they end up once they've been through school. Do they end up with an opportunity of employment, education or training? And again, if we can start to improve destinations, then we will have to change a whole series of other things that make life better for children and young people. this great city, when you look around, given where we are in times of austerity, there's still a mass of building work that's going on. There's still a massive physical regeneration taking place across the city. So soon we'll have John Lewis, which is being built at the moment. We've had the Trinity Centre built recently. Anybody been to the arena yet? Yeah, we went, didn't we? I went to see Prince 20 years after I saw him in Sheffield, which he was absolutely brilliant. So the arena, again, just more and more physical regeneration. So the money's coming in to the city around physical, what the city looks like physically. If we don't match that with social regeneration, then it's just going to be a pretty place that looks okay. It's not going to regenerate itself. And so the whole idea behind Child Friendly City is that we disproportionately invest in children. Because we know that if in this generation we disproportionately invest in children, then they will grow up in this city with loyalty towards the city. They will want to do well in this city. And all of that physical regeneration will be matched by bright young things with ambition and with a future within the city that they will stick with. And I think that is the essence of where we're trying to get to with that matching the physical and social regeneration. I'm not going to say too much more. I've been speaking to Belinda. She's going to be absolutely brilliant. I know Lem a little bit now. I've met him a few times, and he's going to be great. I know you don't want to hear from a boring suit like me for too long, but I do want to just finish with a little video from children and young people in Leeds telling you a little bit about Child Friendly Leeds. This is where it all works.
I wake up every morning wishing for a sunny day, and I open my curtains hoping there's someone out to play. I wash my face and brush my teeth, and I start my 5 a day. I look beyond my city's horizon and wish to go everywhere.
The wheels on the bus go round and round and gets me safely there. My friends could come and we could go, and hope we'll meet some new friends there.
I like my school because it's cool. I get to learn and play. And after school, I like to go to the park and hope it's clean in there. I wish that drivers would care for me more. I would like to ride my bike everywhere and walk through the streets in my town without getting worried about all the cars around.
I dream there is a giant trampoline and a hammock in the sky, so I could rock my dreams into life and make a league that keeps a child in mind.
I want to be a ballerina and dance at the arena, become a footballer, bring us to the top of the league, play rugby, make music, be all I can be. This is my home, my future depends on it. In my dreams it might sound off the wall, but I am a child and I have big ideas, wishes and dreams for my future and all. I want a city that will fulfill my hope.
Leeds is beautiful and Leeds is kind. Look the other way, there are vulnerable kids, unhealthy lifestyles, businesses big and small. Help us please, involve yourselves, create more opportunities.
A child-friendly Leeds should mean no more inequality.
I love my city, I love my home, I love how the tall buildings protect me from the cold. I love how the lights light up at night and change colours like the arena walls. I wish and hope that my future will hold us, as time will change and I will grow. The bigger I grow, I'm filled with hope that I will work to build our home.
Together we'll grow, alone we'll fall. The present needs you, the future depends on us. So let's come together and play.
I love the arena as a giant birthday cake. It's a fabulous image. Okay, that's it from me, so thank you very much. I'm going to get Belinda up here to do her bit. Thank you.
Hello everyone. Thank you all for being here, and it's an honour to be asked to give this lecture today to you all, especially during this week, which reminds us all of how crucial and important it is that we get the right kind of support for care leavers, This week doesn't just hold an academic relevance to me, it also holds a personal relevance, as I'm also a care leaver who's been through transition myself to independence and through education. And today I'm going to focus along the theme of new belongings, but specifically new belongings in education, because to me that's a place where we belong, where we can belong, and where I think any child in care can find somewhere to find belong, but also that it's not just what I think is an measure success. There are other measurements of success, but for me education is what I will be focusing on. And so my research is exploring care leaves' experiences of transition. And today I'll be focusing on my story at the beginning and how I belong in education and my journey to university. Then I'll focus on the study 1 and study 2 that make up my PhD research. These titles probably do seem like gobbledygook because a lot of people won't know some of these words, but they're psychological terms to analysis. But I won't be talking about them today, you'll be pleased to know. So a bit about my background then. I've been in the social services from the age of 3, and this was due to my mother being diagnosed with schizophrenia. I became a young carer for her from the age of 10, and my father wasn't able to look after us either during this time because he struggled with an alcohol addiction. I didn't enter care though till the last year of high school, because most of the time during my childhood I looked after my mum, and that was mainly what I spent doing. But seeing as my research is on transition, and it's on transition through education, I'd like to focus on my story through each educational establishment that I've been in since I entered care. So I'm going to start with high school. I went to this high school in Manchester, St Monica's, and during this time is when I entered care. And for me, it was an uproar. It was at the time that I was going to be sitting my GCSEs, and I felt that I no longer belonged anywhere. My relationship with my birth family had broken down, and my relationship with my foster carers, about 2 months in after the honeymoon period, broke down as well. And I did spend the rest of my high school year with this particular foster placement. And I do have great relationship with them then, but we just couldn't live together, and it just didn't work at the time. And I was suffering with depression and addiction, and during that year I became heavily addicted to alcohol and started getting involved in drugs. I was just in the wrong crowd and didn't feel that there was any hope. I had no self-belief in myself, and I didn't see that I would get my GCSEs. But I had some great support workers at the time, as we all know them as the WAG officers. She used to kind of follow me around a little bit and try and ensure that I would do my GCSEs and not so much attend school, because I did leave school in the April, but she tried to ensure that I kept going, that even though I'd left in the April, that I would keep trying to learn in preparation for my GCSEs. But this time of leaving high school was quite a big thing for me. I didn't really want to leave. I slightly felt like it was pushed towards it. I went into care. I was suffering from depression, and they'd asked me. My head of year sat down with me and felt that it wasn't the right place for me to be, even though education was where I felt that I belonged. I felt at the time that I should go and seek help, and went to a doctor, and he said that he felt that I should also leave, so I did leave. But I stipulated 2 things. That I could do what every young girl, most young girls want to do. I wanted to go to prom. I was adamant that I was going to prom, and they did let me do that, and that I could sit my GCSEs. Even though I didn't have much self-belief, I wanted to do that, because I knew that even if I didn't see myself being somewhere in the year, if I was, I needed them, and I knew that at that age. So I did sit my GCSEs, and I did well enough to get into college. I attended Bury College. And this was a time where the placement completely broke down, and I no longer was able to stay. So at the age of 16, I left care and entered supported lodgings. And again, not long into the first placement, that one broke down as well. I think it was mainly, I would say a lot was down to my behaviour and the way things just didn't work. And the addiction was taking over. I just felt like I couldn't do anything but think about those things in my life, and that's what became the focus for me. And then I started to fail my A-levels, and that's when I think I got the wake-up call. I started getting U's. I wasn't just getting D's and E's. I was failing papers outright, and it was the January time of my A-level year. People didn't have any belief in me by this point. They thought, well, they've written me off. They thought I'd end up in prison, that I'd end up with an addiction, and it wasn't the way that I wanted my life to really be. And I started to realise that. I was surrounded by people that had been in care, that were taking drugs, that were on heroin, that were doing things with their lives that I didn't want to do. That's not where I wanted to be. And I think that was my biggest wake-up call. I can't really pinpoint exactly what helped me turn around, but a lot of it was to do with the people around me, the support that I had outside of that friend and family environment, and the support that I got from the professionals that were around me, my leaving care worker, my social worker, the school, the support officers, just people that just kept believing in me and didn't give up on me at all, which led to me entering higher education. I got 3 Bs at A-level, even though no one believed that I could. I ended up turning around all my papers, resitting, fought to get the money to be able to resit my papers because they didn't think that, they thought, well, you failed once, you're going to fail again. They didn't think that I'd do that I'd be able to do it, and I fought for it. I said, look, if I don't pass them, I'll pay for them. And that was kind of my way of trying to, because I didn't have the money at the time, and it gave me a good incentive as well, because they were £15 each and I had to resit 5. Back then that was quite a bit of money. So it did kind of push me and drive me to keep going with that. And when I got them, I was over the moon. I was happy to be able to go to this university. But the first thing that I did face when I was applying for higher education was the application process. It's a little bit mind-boggling. It's not very easy. Not everybody knows exactly which box we're supposed to tick. Some care leavers try to do it on their own, not knowing that you need to say you're estranged from your parents. And that's quite a big thing, a statement to put as well, that we have to put to be able to get the right kind of support, which it's saying a lot, and not a lot of people want to do that. And so they tend to go through it, and as I've known from some of the young people I spoke to, they've done it on their own and then not got the financial support that they're entitled to, unfortunately. Another thing was the personal statement. That was a huge challenge. I didn't think that there was anything good about myself, especially at that age when all I did was drink. I didn't see myself as somebody who people could kind of invest in or see going to university and achieving. And I did have support with that. I rewrote it 4 times, and I kept sending it into I think it was my principal at college, or something along those lines. And I kept sending it to him anyway, and he helped me. He helped me just turn it around and make it readable to an extent, and show that I did have some good qualities, even though I didn't feel at the time that I did. And so I got a lot of encouragement and motivation. And one of the big things that happened for me that really helped is I got a personalised support package that I think every care leaver should get when they're going to go to university. Somebody actually sat down with me. Even though I was the first from my own local authority to go to university, they sat down with me and said, look, this is what we're going to do. We are winging it a little bit here. We've never done this before. But we're going to give you this support, we're going to give you this financial support, this pastoral support. You can come to us if you want to go back to your supported lodgings placement, you can do that too, we'll keep it open for you. And they did everything they could to ensure that I had the best start for university. I can't say enough about my local authority. Yes, we've had our challenges and I've stormed out of cars, but at the same time, they were there for me, they looked out for me, and they made sure that I got to where I am. Obviously, a lot of that has to come from me as well, and it did. A lot of that had to be me realising that I could do this, and that is something that definitely did happen at some point. And I got involved in supporting the education of children in care, which has really led me to what I do now. Because as soon as I started working with children in care and care leavers, I realised that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to aspire other care leavers to go to higher education, wanted to be an advocate for them. I wanted to show that they could do this, that they were a great group of people with a lot of potential that a lot of us overlook. And that's what I wanted to do. And then, luckily enough, I got the LEMSA scholarship for one student wanted to study a PhD at the University of Huddersfield, as Lem has kindly lent his name to. And again, something that a lot of people actually do ask me is, how did you get this? A lot of people don't know about it, and it's a very new thing, and it's now, we have the second LMCSA scholarship holder now as well, that's just started this year. And I was just, I think at that time, it was about the February time, and Lem had been in to do a public lecture, and I remember meeting him, and it was like rumours, and that's all I knew about it was rumours. And I remember speaking to him and speaking to the Vice-Chancellor and a few other people, and they were like, they thought I could do it, but there was a few other people as well that could do it too, and they just told me I needed to get a first, and that's all I knew. I needed to get a first to be able to compete for this, and that's what I did. I made sure that I got a first so that I could compete for this, and then I got the LMCSA scholarship. So I'd like to just end a bit about myself with some of the people that have helped me. I know you won't know who most of these people are. You might recognise one or two of them. But these are some of the agencies, Very Young Carers and Action for Children, that were there for me. And my foster parents, my leaving care worker, the college, and just great support from university as well. People that were just, at that moment when I really needed it, turned around and said, you can do it. And they were there at that point when I needed them to be. And I think that's what, if I could give any message for you to take away, is just to be there when somebody needs it, and not to shy away from when somebody's feeling low and their self-belief isn't there. You know, 'cause sometimes I know it might be difficult if somebody's always down on themselves, but it does go through, it does get in. It got through to me eventually. It didn't, at the time, I didn't show any sign that it was going in, but it did. And I think that that's something that yet to take from it, really. So, in a much more academic setting that I'm now going to go into, my aim is to improve the experience of education for children in care and care leavers. And this is through my PhD research. This is the first step that I think I am taking to do this. This is on care leavers' transition to higher education. So as we know, the statistics are relatively bleak for children in care, with only 15% achieving 5A star to C grade at GCSE, compared to 59% of general population. That's almost a quarter of those. And then it mirrors how they go on to access higher education as well, with only 7% going on. But again, the statistic is surrounded with a lot of mystery. We're not sure where it really comes from. It's based upon people that have been in care for 12 months and that year that went into care. So it could be a lot less, which unfortunately it probably is. I'm not going to say it's more, it's probably more about 2%, because that's the statistic that keeps coming up, around 2 to 4%. There's been a lot of research recently, well not a lot, it's still quite underrepresented, but it has increased over the last decade, with care leavers in further and higher education, which has shown that pastoral support is a huge thing, financial support, accommodation and consistency. Stability and consistency come up a lot. But no one has ever looked into the transitions of children, the transitions in education for children in care. And I feel, with looking at the previous research that's done with mature students, that the individual background could be having an impact on those transitions, because care leavers are getting in, but not always staying. And I feel there's got to be something said about that time, and maybe something we can do to help them as well during that time. So far then, what do we know about transition for care leavers? This is mainly based on research to do with independent living and the transition to independence. They know they've got the increased chance of experiencing other transitions during this time. There are many more than this, but we've got moving placement and change in schools. This happens a lot more for a child in care. Much more likely to be living independently earlier than their peers, with a lot going to live independently around the ages of 16 to 18, even though I know you can now stay in care till 18, but this still happens. And it's been seen to have an impact on education. What's come up a lot, I know that there's great practice, don't get me wrong, I do know there's great practice, but what comes up in nearly every study is that they lack support during transition. And this is something that needs to be worked on. That is quite an out-of-date reference. So I do have more up-to-date references for this. But they do, unfortunately, lack support. And this brought me on to my first study. My PhD is split into 2 studies, which I'll talk about today. I don't have enough time to go into my findings in depth, but if anyone wants to talk to me about them, I will discuss them with you further. So the first aim was to explore care leaver transition to higher education and how other life transitions during this time affected them. I used semi-structured interviews and asked them a series of questions relating to the transition to university. The biggest barrier I faced was recruitment, because I found that even though I was a care leaver, trying to get gatekeepers to let me have access to other care leaver students was difficult. And I'd approached many universities for the first study, and only 2 were agreeing to help me. In the second study, it changed. A lot more people started to know who I was. I networked a bit more, and it did change. But then, people didn't really seem to want to help in a way. They did. I'm not saying they didn't, and I'm sure there's many care leavers out there that haven't gone to university. There's not a high number of care leavers that have gone, but there was some at these universities. So, in total, 9 participants took part. 6 were female, 3 were male, and they're all aged between 18 and 33. So there was a good mixture of people who'd gone the traditional route and mature students too. They were from universities in Greater Manchester and Yorkshire, and they were a wide range of subjects. 5 were in the first year and 4 in the second year. And this one took a retrospective look at their transition. It asked them to look back on that time and their application process. And there was 3 main themes that I got from this study that's now published. And this was care leaver identity, importance of positive university role models, and corporate versus normal parenting. Care leaver identity really focuses on the impact that being in care has had on somebody personally and through the education system too. Importance of positive university role models. I found that a lot of people had somebody that they looked up to that had been to university. And I know that a lot of the professionals as well that we come into contact have that. So that could be something that we could instill in care leavers too. And corporate versus normal parenting. I put normal is about what we think is our idea of what parenting is. I'm aware that some of the examples I will give for parenting are not what we all see parenting actually is. But this is what care leavers feel they're up against. This is what they feel they're not getting. And that's what I think we need to be aware of, that they do have different expectations maybe to what actually happens. But this is what they want, and this is what, unfortunately, corporate parenting sometimes is falling short of. So I'm just going to show a couple of quotes for each to illustrate each one. For care leaver identity, I often found that people wanted to reject this identity. Rhiannon says, "I'm so embarrassed, is that bad? I'm so embarrassed of saying I'm in foster care." And Catherine talks about how this affected her in education. She says, "I never wanted to be seen as a foster child. So what I saw is that foster children weren't usually going to university, so I was going to go." And you find that in a way, care leavers, this particular care leaver has disassociated herself by attending university. She doesn't want to be associated with being a care leaver, so this is in a way her extreme way of getting out of that. And for positive university role models, what I found was only 1 participant had a positive university role model that had been to care. And this is the quote that I'm going to focus on today. Gavin said, "Robert explained to me that there were other care leavers here, and my experience was that all care leavers are either pregnant or in prison, and there is no other option for you. And because coming here and meeting John, and oh my God, it's a guy that isn't in prison, that is in uni, that filled me with confidence. And I was like, if he can do it, I can do it. It's not impossible." Can see the impact of just meeting another care leaver that's been to university had on this young person. And in my next study, there were further examples of this too. And even not just somebody who's been in care, but any positive university role model can have an impact. Some of the other young people, it was their grandfather who absolutely loved university and had done a few degrees, or the stepbrother that had gone to be a dentist and he looked up to him. And I think these are the things that if we can have those type of people around care leavers, it would help. And this brings me on to the final theme I'm going to discuss today, which is corporate versus normal parenting. And this quote kind of is quite a powerful one from Layla. She says, "You become a number, a case file, and that makes me angry. Because we're not. We're people. And like social services are meant to be corporate parents. And I've looked at the way I've been treated, and people that I know have been treated, and I think, if you're actually parents, we should be taken into care by now." And it kind of sends a message, really, that some people are getting that kind of an experience of care that they feel, well, why go into care when it's supposed to be better? And I've got a couple more examples here that are much more practical and basing on how they think they should be parented. As Gavin says, a normal person, their mum and dad would be like, oh, your first interview, let's drive you down, oh, aren't we excited, sort of thing. Sort of making it more fun than it is an intimidating sort of experience. And Rhiannon says they would sit you down and make you do it in front of your face. Because I've seen my boyfriend and his mum, and he'd be like, I'll do it later, and she'd be like, no, you'll do it now. Sit there and make him fill out the application form. And we see that with Rhiannon in particular, she's seen how her partner gets parented and how different that is to the parenting she's receiving. Yes, with Gavin, it's just an idea. It's, how he thinks parenting is. But Rhiannon has a concrete example of how she feels that, she's not getting that right kind of parenting. And this was a huge theme across my first study, that people just felt a little bit let down by corporate parents, although there was usually one sounding person that went the extra mile, and that was normally somebody within that field too. But as we know, there's a lot of corporate parents for one person normally. So how did I get from study 1 to study 2 then? Well, it's still a fairly underrepresented area of academic literature, so I felt that this needed more exploration. And I investigated transition at one point and felt that it would be a lot better to explore transition as it happened. So that's what study 2 does. And I felt it would potentially give me more access to this transitional stage and tell me more about that stage for these young people. So I aimed to explore care leavers' transition to university longitudinally. And I did this through 3 stages over a 9-month period. Stage 1 was before enrolment at university. Stage 2 was in the participant's first term, and Stage 3 was in the participant's second term, and they all took part in semi-structured interviews. There was only one participant that didn't do the final interview. Everybody else did all the interviews, and that was just because she couldn't fit it into she was too busy at the time. She just couldn't fit it in. And out of that, 7 care leavers took part, with ages ranging from 18 to 21. 4 were female and 3 were male, and had all spent at least 2 years in care. That's not something that I was trying to get, it's just something that happened as part of this study. They'd all been in foster care, including 3 with at least 1 placement in residential care, so quite a mixture of young people, and enrolled in a variety of courses, including business management, criminology and illustrating. And this came about 4 key themes and 2 integrated themes. Now, unfortunately, I'm not going to have any time to show you quotes for these ones, so I'm going to talk about a case study in a minute before I end. But the 4 key themes are exercising agency and regaining control. This really looks at how young care leavers and children in care feel that the decisions have been made for them, and that control has been taken away from them, and how they look to fight back, and how they try and get back some kind of agency for themselves. Most of them do this, I've talked about how they do this through education, but for others they do have other examples, success through employment, doing something that's theirs, even being in their own home and choosing that, going down to, I can't remember what you call it, but when you go online and you apply for your housing, for council housing, being able to do that themselves was quite a big thing too. Exposure to university, pre-entry to higher education, which kind of follows along this positive university role models theme I was telling you before, but not just that. Any exposure to university seems to have a huge impact on young people when they're thinking about going to university. Not just, obviously, children in care, but young people in general. And it did for this study. Every single person had some positive exposure to university. Modes of transition to university life looks at how they prepare, embrace and disengage and fit in, and how that kind of works them for university. And perceptions of support looks at what they think supports them, what they believe is important to them, not what we may think is important for support. And there's 2 integrated themes that cut across all of this. Again, identity, and it is mainly care leaver identity, and how it affects them having that kind of agency, access to control, how they had that access to university, and if they got that opportunity to. And stability versus instability, which I'm sure we all know that consistency is a huge key. It's a huge key to success for many care leavers, and that when they have this stability, it does seem to lead to quite a successful story. But I'm only going to have a chance again to talk about 3 case studies, and I've looked at 3 people who've got a very wide range of diverse experiences, and I can only talk about one of them today, which is Bethany. And unfortunately, I'm only going to be able to focus on one element of hers, because my story my research is vast. There's a lot of data, and I can't, unfortunately, cram it all into just one sort of half an hour, which I'm sure I've gone over by now. Have I not gone over yet? So, Bethany then. A little bit about Bethany. She was 21 years old at the time of the first interview. She was my only mature student. It's a bit weird to call her a mature student at 21, but that's what she was classed as. Age of entry into care was 14. She had 8 placements in total. She spent 4 years in foster care and 3 years in leaving care placement, and she took the non-traditional route to university. And the main themes that came from her study were supportive influences, feeling encouraged and cared for. And because this was kind of, my case studies were an extra thing, I decided that I would take one sub-theme from each theme and follow it along the 3 interviews for my analysis. So for this one, the main supportive influence is family. The second one is on supportive failing and failed relationships. And I'm not trying to shame leaving care teams there, but this was the main one for her. For other people, this wasn't the case. This was their main supportive and encouraging influence. But for Bethany, this wasn't, and she felt quite let down and failed by them. And theme 3 is unsettlement, change and disarray. That's the one I'm going to talk about a little bit more in depth today. And the main thing that unsettled her was moving. This quote sums this up for her. My whole life changed that Monday morning because I moved house and started university, the 2 biggest things you can do in your life. For Bethany, she moved into a council flat in the first couple of weeks of starting university, and this had a huge impact on her. In the first interview, she talks about how she was moving from a supported accommodation, but there wasn't enough time there wasn't enough money available for her to stay where she was, so she had to go and live with family for a couple of weeks, which she didn't want to do, whilst the council flat was being prepared. She says, I started university and was not eligible for housing benefit. I couldn't afford to stay where I was, and my flat wasn't ready. I'm at my dad's, my nan's. I didn't want to. I wanted to go straight from supported accommodation where I was living, straight to my new flat, and my leaving care team said they wouldn't pay my rent for the week at supported accommodation because it was something like £250 a week. And I'm not suggesting that this should be what happens, but it's about not having that big transition at that early stage. And that's what seemed to have a huge impact on Bethany. In interview 2, she talks about the more practicalities. She talked not just about the kind of having to take time off from a university at the beginning, but also about having to struggle to try and get deliveries to her house as well, because she had nothing, and she had to organise all that during the first couple of weeks too. She says, I moved out of supported accommodation over there on the Monday, went to university on the Monday, and while I was at my nan's, it was all right, but once, because what happened, I had to take an afternoon off during the Learn to Learn week because I needed to go and pick up my keys for here, because they could only do it on the Friday afternoon. I'd be waiting for about another week or so, and I wanted to get in, so I took the Friday off. So we see that instantly that causes disruption to the start of her higher education journey. And in the final interview, unfortunately, there are loads of success. I'm not saying that it's not that she wasn't unsuccessful, but she did drop out of university. Every other young person did continue on, but she does attribute this time of moving to that. She says, this was the first time I was living on my own. So I sat in a theatre thinking, have I turned my cooker off? Have I locked the door? Are the windows closed? Is somebody going to burgle me? What do I do if there's a fire? What do I do if there's an electric? You know, all these mad things going round in my head. I actually wrote a list of everything I worried about in my flat, about 2 pages, and that started panicking me because I was so far away from home. So we get an insight into how she actually feels going to higher education and moving into her own accommodation too. When I asked her what did she think had an impact on her leaving university, she said, I think if I hadn't moved house, because when you're sat worrying about house stuff and you're at uni, it's different. I think I don't really cope well to change. And she did say that it was just too much at once. This wasn't the only thing that led to that. She, unfortunately, was the young person I was talking about before with student finances. She applied, but she didn't get support during that time. And she didn't have any student support financially for, I think it was for the 3 months. She ended up leaving at Christmas because she had no money, as well as these things too. And she found that when she'd gone to her leaving care team, they kept saying that they needed to know what the figures were going to be to be able to support her, to give her any extra financial support, and did not give her any support, which for other people this didn't happen. She had a sister at the time that this hadn't happened for, and they'd supported her. She had a similar experience too. And unfortunately, in Bethany's case, she felt it, in a lot of ways, she felt it was because of her age, because she was 21, and they're expected to sometimes leave the leaving care system at 21. And she felt this kind of attributed to that. So what conclusions have I drawn upon so far? Well, the implications for professionals. I believe that one of the biggest things that I think should be happening is peer mentoring. That just another care leaver that's at university, I know that not every child in care wants to speak to somebody that's been to university, but somebody who's been in their position, somebody who knows what it's like to be in care and to go for education, I think that could really help. And I've seen it work. I've done it myself. I've seen it work. I just wish that it was national. I wish it was something that happened everywhere, even within local authorities, just saying, would you be able to talk to this person? Would you be able to help them with their options? You know, just show them the ropes a little bit. Empowerment in decision making, helping them to know that, well, helping them make decisions, but so they know that this is their decision, that they're making this decision. Because exercising agency and regaining control, that theme, did show that they didn't feel they had control in their own lives. And this didn't always lead to going through education as a way of fighting back. Sometimes they fought back in other ways that were a little bit more destructive. And knowledge of the application process. Again, we find that a lot of times there is, in a lot of local authorities, a designated worker that works with those that are going on to university, but not in every local authority. And the young people were finding that they didn't really know what to do, you know, how they were meant to apply for this, what boxes they were meant to tick, what they were meant to do, and this had an impact on them during that time. Personalised, consistent and stable support, which I'm sure everyone has had drummed into them, and I think this is a huge thing. It still, unfortunately, doesn't happen. It happens to a large, you know, I think some places it does, some places it doesn't, but it's coming up over and over that they're not getting, from one year to the next, especially my first study, they weren't getting the same support. It would change all of a sudden. Then they felt, well, I'm at university, I haven't got the same support, I can't cope now. And that was having a huge effect on some of those young people. And clear support guidelines for university. I think just knowing what's available to them has a huge impact on whether they do end up going. And I think there's a need for further research in this area, not just with university, but also with kids and their options, also going on to college. It's something that I'm going to be looking into, and something that I wish that other people look into too. And I'd just like to end with a quote from one of the young people that's still at university now. And she says, "It was the best decision I ever made. You can spread your wings, you can choose what course you do, you can choose what path you go down in life." And it was incredibly helpful for her, and something that she is so happy now that she's done, a huge achievement that she feels that she has in her life. Thank you very much for listening.
Lem, the floor's yours. People don't want to hear from me.
Follow that. God, follow that.
I just escaped that
Oh,
fear.
no, leave it on. It's good. I like that. I like that on there, Belinda.
leave
I
that
liked
up?
it. I liked
Okay.
it. Yeah. Why not? That was incredible.
Thank you.
That was incredible. I think that that talk should go all over the country. I think you should be talking to all, because it's right up to the minute, to the second. And I can tell that there were workers in this audience who were nodding in recognition of the scenarios that you gave examples of, that are working with those young people right now. In other words, there are billions of talks that they've been to, that they go to, where they hear not as up to the minute feedback on their own situations as you've just given. You know, that's not to denigrate the information that they do get. That is to say, not as specific to that. So, I mean, or maybe I should just talk about myself and not just say that that's about you. You know, maybe I shouldn't be saying that, oh, all your other talks are terrible, but that one was good. You know what I mean? I just realised I've just walked myself into a wall. I've walked into a wall. Because I like to take pot shots at social workers, do you know what I mean, and the social services and children in general. Because it's a big, massive target, you know what I mean, Belinda? And I think to myself, well, I don't have to do that much, do I? Just close my eyes and take a shot, and boom, I hit one, you know what I mean? And then get a round of applause, you know, because because people have an innate suspicion of social workers and the people who work with young people in particular, and it's because they're, from my experience anyway, and I only talk about, I'm not from an organisation, I don't have an agenda as such, but it's because they're their kids, see. It's because the social worker is doing the job that may affect them. It's because they can't admit that there's a need, a total need for social workers. A total need, because the entire society is in denial. And you know who proves them wrong? The little shits. Kids. No, not the social worker, the kids. The actual child who's away from family is proof that family suffers from dysfunction, and anybody who's part of a family knows that dysfunction is part of its function, and yet it doesn't admit to it outside of its walls. But a child who's without a family in care proves the fact. And that, to me, is why nobody wants a children's home near them. That, to me, is why a child in care is a problem to be solved, not a solution waiting to happen. Do you know, yesterday I was being interviewed by Cambridge University Press for a book and a video which is going to be in nearly every school in Britain regarding the national curriculum and regarding English in particular, writing in particular. And the guys who were interviewing me were ex-exam board guys who'd curated this book and this DVD. And I was asked, as part of it, because there was a whole lot of very specific questions, I was asked about rhetoric and speeches. One of the questions was, you give a lot of speeches, Len. You give a lot of speeches. We need to talk about rhetoric, Len. And I don't know what rhetoric is. And I said to them that I only understood that I use rhetorical questions retrospectively, because people told me that I did. I've never constructed a speech with the 3 top numbers, or etc. I am what I am right now, in the present, as much as I can be. And the reason I said that, and I said that for a very specific reason, connected to what I was just talking to you about. What was I just talking about before I started talking about rhetoric? Come on. Excuse me.
Cambridge.
Thank you. And dysfunction. So I just want you to know, it's not building up to a great 3-point... Do you know what I mean? I believe in rhetoric, by the way, and I believe in the idea of it, and I understand how it can help you. But as I said in that yesterday, is that if you don't believe in the message that you're saying, don't use the devices to say it. That is to say that the idea that you had, Sal, about young people, the overarching idea of the city being a friendly and safe place for young people is a really powerful thing. And I think that for me to achieve those things that you were talking about in here, this is just a personal thing, right? So you don't have to... I've not even introduced myself, have I? Sorry. I am so sorry. My name's Lem Sissay. I write books and I write poetry. And I write plays as well. And I am an honorary doctor of Huddersfield University for Humanities. And I'll tell you now, I've just been made honorary doctor of literature at Manchester University. I had to wait 25 flaming years to get my bloody education. And I'm an MBE for services to literature. Met the Queen, nice lady, small but nice. And, not that there's anything wrong with being small, do you know what I mean? And I write poetry. And when I left care, the first thing that people said to me as I started to articulate what was going through me is, Lem, do you know what you should be? And I was like, what shall I be? They were like, a role model. All they had to offer me when I had... I had a lot of stuff to work through, but I was somewhat articulate in that I could communicate the confusion, which doesn't mean to say I could solve it. All they had to offer me was that I was a role model. Gosh. And then Belinda said to me just before I came in, she said, yeah, but you are a role model. And she said, you are now because you've earned it. And I like that, Belinda. That's special. I think I might have earned it. As a care leaver, you know what I mean? And I'm still a care leaver. You're not a care leaver from 18 to 25. You're a care leaver for life. You have a childhood for life. You'll be reminded soon at Christmas of all of the childhoods you've ever had. You'll be reminded of your mum because you'll call her. You'll be reminded of your mum because she's not there because she passed away 2 years ago. You'll be reminded of the family Christmases that you had when you were a kid, because you've now got kids and they're saying the same things to you that you said to your parents, and you're reacting in the same way as your parents did. No, you're not. Yes, you are. No, you're not. Yes, you are. No, you're not. You're going to stop doing that because they did that. You're going to do it that way. And you're going to do it that way as a reaction to the way they did it, but absolutely you are in relation to your childhood throughout your adult life, whether you like it or not. And the thing is, when you leave care at 18 years of age, after a life in care, you're consistently reminded in the same way as everything that you never had on every occasion. Your birthday, your Christmases, your weekends, the dysfunction of what happens in care is with you, confirmed consistently for the rest of your life. I think that care leavers should be offered free therapy whenever they want it, because it's not just when you leave care, it's when you have a child, it's when you get married, it's when you're this, that and the other. Free therapy, free, when they ask for it. What I was going to get to then is that like, like families have histories. Like they have history. Like I was saying before about how society, I believe, sees the child in care as a threat. I've got proof of the child in care as threat. It happens in relation to our relation to the police, for example. I knew too much about the police when I was 14 and 15 in children's homes and foster care. If I ran away from homes, it was the police that came for me. I had too close a relationship to the police outside of me. And the staff around me, they had too close a relationship to the police as well. They mentioned the word police too many times in my presence. It was called care. It was called care. It was called care. And that's kind of Orwellian for me. Because if you can condition me to use the word care, you can then condition me to think that it's normal to use the phrase leaving care as care in itself. Now, as a kid, I'm not daft, you know what I mean? And like words have a thing with them. You'll know that when you talk to your own children, won't you? That if you use a different word, they'll take it differently. So you're quite sure at times to say a particular word so that they receive it in the way that you want it to be received, because they're firing on all cylinders, because they're intelligent, because they're learning what